Today I want to talk about how a financing contingency works in a Minnesota purchase agreement. Now I'm going to just generalize a little bit. I'm not going to get into too many specifics because this can be a really touchy subject, and it will depend on how the purchase agreement is written to determine how the financing contingency will ultimately work. In a standard Minnesota purchase agreement, the majority of the buyers are going to have some sort of financing. We're obligated to tell the seller, when we're representing a buyer, what percentage a buyer's putting down in cash versus what percentage they're financing. So let's say they're putting 20% down and financing 80%. We then have to provide, obviously, a letter stating they're pre-approved for that 20% down, 80% conventional mortgage. Now, as we progress through the financing contingency, there are several steps that need to be met. The most important step is the appraisal. And typically the way the purchase agreement is written, if that home doesn't appraise for any reason, that buyer can cancel and get their earnest money back. So understand, as a seller, if you're under contract and closing is 90 days out, you're now pending, and let's say that appraisal doesn't get ordered for 60 days, and that appraisal comes in low, you've lost 60 days on the market, and that buyer can legally cancel that contract. Again, I'm generally speaking, and this is in a typical Minnesota real estate purchase agreement. Oftentimes, a contract can be written to protect a seller should that appraisal come in low. But in this new market that we're in, we're not seeing as many what we call appraisal gap guarantees. Now, once that appraisal comes in, really the next step is what's called a written statement. Now, that can be a very confusing term to a lot of different lenders, and there's really no formal written statement. And what a written statement just says is, this buyer's been fully underwritten, they're fully approved, the appraisal's done, we've verified income and assets, and we're really locked in and set to go. In a typical Minnesota purchase agreement, once that written statement is provided to a seller, that earnest money becomes what I call hard. So it's more difficult for a buyer to get that earnest money back once that written statement's been provided. So as a seller, it's important to know that that written statement, A, should be in the contract, and B, should be far enough away from closing so that you're not asking for a written statement the day before closing. You're packed up, boxed up, the house is cleaned, you don't get the written statement, and the deal falls apart as your moving vans are sitting in the driveway. If you have any questions on a financing contingency or anything in a Minnesota purchase agreement, don't hesitate to reach out.